Hey, Bulls and Bears. You are watching Bull Boom Bear Bust. Thanks for being here, YouTube family. It is February 3rd, Thursday, 2022. Thank you very much for being here. Folks, we are witnessing a debt binge like we've never seen before. This economy, while it looks strong on the surface, if you just take a brief glance at the numbers, everything's looking good. But when you look behind the scenes, this economic growth, as they call it, is being held up by record amounts of debt. What we saw here just recently was the record issuance of credit cards for calendar year 2021. It may be shocking to some people, but it's really no surprise if you've been following how things actually work on this channel, as we've talked about here for years. Recent article here, the US has more credit cards issued than ever before in history in 2021, a record year for credit card issuance. And if you look into this article, this is out of Bloomberg, it was more towards lower credit score people, lower credit risk or higher credit risk with the lower credit scores. And you say, well, how can banks do that? And how can they keep on giving out credit cards to people with such low credit scores? Well, it's pretty simple. The banks have been promised endless life support. Endless life support. It doesn't matter how many bad loans are given out. It doesn't matter how many credit cards are given out to people with bad credit. The banks have no risk, right? They've been promised endless life support. Let that sink in just for a minute, and then ask yourself, is the cost of living going to start coming down this year, next year, the year after that? Right? With this type of credit being issued, credit/debt, which is the flip side. Debt is the flip side of credit. Now, of course, there are some people that have credit available that don't use it. Everybody doesn't run up debt. But if we look at the trend, most people are getting further and further into deeper and deeper into debt. Now, it's interesting if we look at the chart right here, if we look at the white line, and this gives us an indicator of the pain that is to come. So think about this. Interest rates are going up now on credit cards at the same time as people have record amounts of consumer debt. And this chart goes back 20 plus years. So we're at a 20 plus year high in the average credit card interest rate at a time when rates are still near historic lows. So that should tell you what the banks have planned for all these people that have all this credit card debt. And in fact, Investopedia just came out with this here recently, the average, or the median rather, not the average, but the median, which is half of the people have more than this and half of the people have less than this. The median is 19.49% on credit card interest rates. And the portion of not so good credit versus people with excellent credit, the portion of all the credit cards that were taken out has now exceeded people with excellent credit. So people with not so good or fair credit scores over here to the left is now a bigger part of the pie or piece of the pie versus people with excellent credit scores. So we're seeing this shift towards more money being loaned out or more borrowing happening to people with lower and lower credit scores. So that's really no surprise, really, if you again understand what we've been talking about here. As prices rise, as debt continues to climb, things get more expensive. People have to borrow more money, and to keep the economy moving or to keep the GDP growing, you have to expand the credit pool or the debt pool. So expect the piece of the pie with people with good or not so good credit to get bigger and bigger as this continues. We have the Bank of England raising rates for the second time in a row. The ECB, the European Central Bank, did not raise rates. They held rates steady. So we're seeing this mix of let's raise rates because of inflation, let's not raise rates because we're scared of what higher rates are going to do to all the people with all this debt and to the markets. Now let's take a look at the national debt chart here. This was put out by Wolf Street, a great website. Go check it out if you get a chance. But this is looks to me like a parabolic endgame move for debt. This goes back to 2012, but let's just look at 2019 here and see we went from 22 trillion to now 30 trillion in debt just in this short amount of time. And when we see this nearly straight up and down parabolic pattern in anything, stocks, debt, it usually means that the end or the turning point is near. Now, anything can happen. Price insanity, bull markets, they can go on longer than many people can even imagine. But it's been true that in a lot of cases, when you see a correction, at first you see a blow off top, which is a near parabolic move. Now look at this chart and ask yourself, isn't it getting closer to vertical? There's people out there that will tell you that this thing is going to infinity and there's never going to be any change, never going to be any pullback. If that's the case, that's actually the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, which is also going to be pretty painful for most people, is going to be a correction. If they stop issuing debt, you will see a very drastic change in not just the markets, but our way of life. And you think the job losses are bad now, just wait until the debt binge is done. It's going to be painful. And if you thought the people that were fighting at the Golden Corral that we talked about a couple reports ago, if you thought that was bad, just wait until the majority of the population cannot get food. So right now we've got this strange combination from the bankers of, hey, let's start raising rates because of the rising prices, at the same time as parabolic moves in debt issuance and money creation. So we're headed into some interesting times, very interesting times, and I don't think anyone knows exactly how it's going to play out because we've never seen these levels of debt before and this type of monetary action. But we're all going to find out. We're all going to live through it, and 2022 is going to be very interesting, to say the least. So keep stacking, keep preparing for what's ahead of us. What's the next fork in the road going to be? Please let me know down in the comments. Until then, until our next report, thanks everybody. Be well. Peace.